Hey, what's up, Asbury University? This is Zach Monroe, and I'm coming to you from the Center for Wholeness and Wellness. And today is going to be our last video for Mental Health Matters, the edition, the 4 pillars of mental health. So far we've talked about exercise, nutrition, relationships, part 1 and 2. And then in today's edition, we're going to talk about the importance of sleep. And so there's tons and tons of research out there regarding sleep. And, what you need to know is that at the end of the day, sleep is vitally important for every aspect of life. In fact, if there are areas in your life that you feel out of control, oftentimes you can take a look at your sleep patterns and whether or not you're getting enough sleep. Just like nutrition or exercise, if you get your sleep under control, you'll see the benefits in other areas that we've talked about. So in today's talk, what we're going to do is we're going to consider, basically think about 2 things to consider when we're thinking about the importance of sleep. So consideration number 1 is just research. For many of us, people start talking about sleep and you're like, blah, 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 like, okay, I get it. But what you need to know as college students is that there is tons of pilot studies, tons of research, peer-reviewed, scholarly, empirically backed research that highlights the importance of sleep. The second consideration is just sleep hygiene. This may be a new term for you, and I'm going to break it down in some very practical concepts. And I just realized that my back screen is pillar number 1, relationships. Ignore that. I would go back and correct it, but I'm going to push back against my perfectionistic tendencies and just let it be. Okay? So, back to it. Consideration number 2 is sleep hygiene, and I'm going to break it down into rhythms and rituals and just kind of hash that out in a way that makes sense in my brain and hopefully is helpful to you. So let's consider some of the research. There's an excellent article in the Journal of American College Health, published in 2018, volume 66, Baroni et al., that there were 2 quotes that I just thought were very poignant and just kind of brass tacks, got to the bottom line of the importance of sleep. They write, disturbed or insufficient sleep is common among college students, with 70% of students attaining insufficient sleep, 50% reporting daytime sleepiness, and more than 30% reporting severe sleep difficulties. In another part of the article, they write, insufficient sleep negatively affects cognitive, physical, and psychological health, and has been associated with poor academic achievement, motor vehicle accidents, substance abuse, and obesity. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a college student, I hate to say it, but when finals would roll around, I would drink entire pots of coffee. And it's because I had no idea, 1, the research that was out there talking about the importance of sleep. And then 2, as I kind of took a look at my life and realized kind of the patterns that I had engaged in growing up, my parents taught me really well, but as a college student on my own, I had to think through, okay, what is realistic for me in this season of life? And unfortunately, it wasn't great. I didn't have any concept for our second consideration, which is consideration number 2, sleep hygiene. And the way that I'm going to unpack sleep hygiene is just 2 R's, rhythms and rituals. But what you need to know is that, several years back, I was interacting with some experts and some scholars on anxiety, worry, depression, and other anxiety-related things. And one of the things that kept coming up was this idea of sleep hygiene. And to be quite honest with you, I had never even heard of the term sleep hygiene. And so I was like, my mind immediately went to, are you talking about like being clean before you go to bed? And then a whole world opened up to me of what it looks like to have good sleep hygiene. And in the same way that you have physical hygiene, you take care of yourself, and you do so through particular self-care acts, whether it be taking a shower, getting clothes, deodorant, perfume, things that provide self-care. The same is true for sleep. And what I had realized is that as an athlete and as a college student, I didn't really consider the ramifications or the effects of going to bed super late 2 or 3 times a week. It was just part of college life. Like, that's just what you do. And I began to realize as an athlete, my actual performance began to suffer a bit because I was going to bed late because of studying and hanging out with friends. And then I was getting up early for workouts, but then midday I would crash because I wasn't getting enough sleep. And so two things to consider when we think about sleep hygiene is the first one is rhythms. And what you can think of as kind of the flow of life. Think about it. If you were just to consider a day, you've got morning, evening, and night. And before the digital era, there was kind of a shut off with before the Industrial Revolution, the digital era, when the sun went down, that's when people began to slow down. And I think it's really important to think through the fact that that's actually a really good indicator of when our minds and our bodies can begin to slow down instead of ramping up and we're just getting going and now we're pulling all-nighters and we think, oh, I'm tough, I can do this. But in actuality, it's just not good for your body. And so to consider, there's a natural rhythm of life that signals to us when we need to rest. And so if you think about this, when night begins to fall, that's when people begin to slow down. They begin to go to their homes. They begin to go to the dorm room. And that's actually a process of slowing your body down to where you begin to go to sleep. And so, one of the things that was helpful to me as I began to think about sleep hygiene was I would consider other rhythms of life, like getting up and going to work out, eating breakfast at a particular time, eating lunch at a particular time. There was this rhythm, right? It just kind of followed the day. But I hadn't considered the importance of having a particular rhythm of slowing down before I go to bed so I get really good rest. And so if I were to ask, how are your sleep rhythms? Do you have a regular bedtime? It's hard for your body to know what to expect if one night you're going to bed at 8 and then the next night you're going to bed at 2. Your body can't get into a good rhythm. It doesn't know what to expect. There's a certain level of inconsistency. And as a result, your body kind of feels all over the place. And so do you have a good rhythm? Do you begin to slow down when nighttime takes place? Or is that like your cue of like everybody else is going to bed, I'm going to stay up? And listen, it's not right or wrong, but the research does indicate that those individuals who have consistent, good rhythms of sleep hygiene overall are more healthy and have less mental health consequences. And so good assessment question is, how might your rhythm be adjusted in order to have better sleep hygiene? And so practically what this looked like for me when I began to take the idea of sleep hygiene seriously is I just set myself a bedtime. And it was kind of a rhythm. Around 8 o'clock is when I would start slowing down. And then I would engage in what we're about to talk about, the rituals that help me understand, hey, we're no longer working, we're not engaging in difficult conversations, and we're getting ready to enter into a time of rest. And so sleep hygiene, first part, rhythms. Think about it. There's a flow, there's a way of life that indicates to us, hey, we need to begin to slow down. The next one is rituals. And the way that you can think about rituals is things that you do during the natural rhythms of the day, morning, evening, night, to trigger your brain and your body to start slowing down in order to get sleep. And so practically what this looks like is 8:30, I'm going to start brushing my teeth. 9 o'clock, TV, screens go away, read a book until 9:30, 10 o'clock, fills you up and fall asleep by 10. And so you have this natural progression of your body knows what to expect. Now think about it this way. On Monday, you start your bedtime routine, say at 9 o'clock, and then you get hooked on one streaming video at and then you watch another and another and another, and you're not in bed till the screens don't go down till 11, and then you can't fall asleep until 1. On Tuesday, because you're so tired from Monday, you start your bedtime routine at 8:30, you fall asleep by 9:30, you wake up way earlier than you normally do because your body feels all out of balance, out of whack. Your circadian rhythm, technical term for your sleep-wake cycles, are inconsistent and kind of all over the place. But if you begin to take rhythm seriously and then engage in particular rituals that trigger for your brain and your body to slow down, and that looks different for everybody. For me, my mind is constantly going. It's like a racetrack. There's thoughts all the time going, going, going. So for me, I have to do things that are kind of boring. So brush my teeth, wash my face, cozy up in bed with a book that's not intellectually or theologically or psychologically stimulating, something with fiction, and I begin to slow down. Or sometimes I'll journal, or sometimes, I'll watch a show, and then after the show, kind of create a space for my wife and I to hang out and talk, and then fall asleep. And I don't do it perfectly, but majority of the time, more often than not, there's a good rhythm and there's good rituals that trigger to me, hey, it is time for bed to have good sleep hygiene. So kind of just briefly, real quick, 2 considerations. The research, there's tons and tons of research. You just type in sleep hygiene, sleep-wake cycles, college health, and sleep. You'll see that sleep is not only crucial for good rest and productivity, but for your body to actually recoup, recover, and be able to grow. And the second one is just sleep hygiene. Consider it. Consider the rhythms and rituals that can be helpful to you. And then I've got some just good questions, or some things to consider. So overall, how's your sleep hygiene? How is it? Have you ever thought about the concept? Have you considered the importance of it? What small changes could you affect to make it better? If you're used to going to bed at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, it's probably very unrealistic for you to go to bed at 10. But what if you were to bump it back an hour each week? So this week, instead of going to bed at 2, you went to bed at midnight. And the next week, you went to bed at 11. And then you kind of experimented and figured out what was good and helpful to you. And for me, I need about 8 to 9 hours of sleep to function on all cylinders. I have a mentor, quite honestly, he can survive on 5 or 6, and he produces, like, he gets things done. He's healthy. He's clear-headed. There's no brain fog. And so he only needs about 5 or 6 hours. And so I'm not going to tell you that you have to hit 8 hours, but I will tell you, think about what sleep hygiene looks like for you and what makes sense to you and your body. And then lastly, maybe if this whole concept is silly to you, consider some whys that might motivate you to bring about change in the area of sleep. For me, I noticed that when I got 8 to 9 hours of sleep, my nutrition was better, I had more energy for workouts, and my overall functionality was greater. I didn't have as much brain fog, I wasn't as on edge, and honestly, I just enjoyed life more. Like, I wasn't falling asleep in class, I could stay present in conversations. And so maybe consider some whys to maybe just think about why sleep hygiene is important to you, and if it's important enough to bring about some changes. And so before we close, just a few quick tips or tricks in terms of helping you with better sleep. Decrease the amount of light in your room. Studies have shown that if you've got lights, if you've got screens, or you've got blinking, flashing lights, that it'll actually impact, even if your eyes are closed, it'll impact your ability to sleep. And so think about maybe getting some room darkening shades. In our home, they're completely blacked out because we really value sleep. The second one is begin a slow down process removing screens. So I know it's really, really difficult. Most of us use our phones for our alarms, but maybe consider putting the phone across the room, face down, putting on do not disturb, getting your laptops away, to where the distractions, the pixels, all these different things aren't detracting from your ability to slow down. A third thing is give plenty of time for dinner to digest before going to bed. If you're crushing a ham and cheese sandwich with Tostitos and salsa, like I did last night, right before bed, my stomach was bubbling, and it took me about an hour to get comfortable and go to sleep. So create some space between the time that you have your last meal and when you go to bed. Number 4, engage specific activities, wash face, brush teeth, read, write, that trigger your brain and body. It's time for bed. So when you engage in this activity, it's you telling yourself, okay, it's time to start slowing down. I'm going to put work away. I'm going to put all the conversations, all the distractions away so I can get some good rest. And then lastly, take a moment to jot down all the thoughts in your brain before going to sleep. This is something that I have to do because my brain is just constantly on blast. To write down those things, to put them in a journal, to sit them aside on my nightstand. And then I know, man, I had 3 things that I got to think about doing tomorrow. I get them down, write it out, and then boom, it's out of my head. I'm clear, and I'm able to get cozy and to go to bed. So here's the data on research. Sleep hygiene is important. And the way to think about sleep hygiene is good rhythms and rituals. And so, yeah, sleep is one of the 4 pillars of mental health that contributes to not only your own mental health, but also other areas. And we thought that this content might be something that stimulated some thinking about your life and how it contributes to your overall mental health. Again, we want you to know, as counselors at the Center for Wholeness and Wellness, that we're here for you, Asbury students, and we hope that this content was helpful and useful to you. Like it, subscribe, put it on blast with your social media feeds, let people know that sleep is important, and that it's a process. It's not going to be perfect, but as long as you're making progress, that's the goal. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.